Hello guys, welcome to another episode. Today we are going to read 3 more chapters of The Absent Author, which we started a few days ago. I know some of you have requested me to finish this book, and so I will read 3 more chapters today and then hopefully get it done in the next couple days. So you guys can finish off The Absent Author. We can start on the next book or another chapter book. So here we go. This one, you'll remember last time when we stopped that they were trying to track down their author friend, Wallace Wallace. They thought he'd been kidnapped and they're trying to find out where he was at. So they just found out that they did not, or that they're trying to track down and follow his itinerary. Remember, so they're checking things off, like he came from the airport, check. He got dropped off at the hotel, check. But then his room wasn't cleaned by the cleaning lady, Livy. Remember that? All right. Chapter 7. Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose left Mavis at Ellie's diner, then headed for Dink's house. Dink made tuna sandwiches and lemonade, and Ruth Rose brought a bag of potato chips and some raisin cookies from her house next door. They ate at the picnic table in Dink's backyard. Dink took a bite of his sandwich, and after he swallowed, he said, "Let's go over what we know." He moved his lemonade glass to the middle of the table. "My glass is the airport," he said. "We know Wallace Wallace landed." "How do we know he did?" Josh asked. "The airport told me the plane landed, Josh." "And Maureen Higgins said she picked him up," Ruth Rose added. "Okay, so your glass is the airport," Josh said. "Keep going, Dink." Dink slid his sandwich plate over next to his glass. "My plate is Maureen's taxi." Dink slid the plate over to the opened potato chip bag. "This bag is the hotel." He walked the Wallace Wallace cookie from the plate into the bag. Dink looked at Josh and Ruth Rose. "But what happened to Wallace Wallace after he walked into the lobby?" There's a big picture for you. "I'll tell you what happened," Josh said. He lined up 4 cookies in a row. "This little cookie is Mr. Paskey. These are Maureen, Mr. Linkletter, and Olivia Nugent." Josh looked up and waggled his eyebrows. "I think these 4 cookies planned the kidnapping together." Ruth Rose laughed. "Josh, Mr. Paskey and Livy Nugent are friends of ours. Do you really think they planned this big kidnapping? And can you see Mr. Linkletter and my babysitter pulling off a kidnapping together?" Josh ate a potato chip. "Well, maybe not, but someone kidnapped the guy." "Our trail led us to the hotel and then it ended," Dink said. "What I want to know is, if Wallace Wallace isn't in his room, where is he?" Dink nibbled on a cookie thoughtfully. "I'm getting a headache trying to sort all this out." Ruth Rose dug in Dink's backpack and brought out 3 Wallace Wallace books. "I have an idea." She handed books to Dink, Josh, and she kept one. "What are these for?" Dink asked. "Josh made me think of something that Wallace Wallace wrote in The Mystery in the Museum," Ruth Rose said. "He said the more you know about the victim, the easier it is to figure out who did the crime." She turned to the back cover of her book. "Okay, so let's try to find out more about our victim. Listen to this." She started reading out loud. "When not writing, the author likes to work in the garden. Naturally, Wallace Wallace's favorite color is green." "Fine," said Josh. "But how does knowing his favorite color help us find him, Ruth Rose?" "I don't know, but maybe if we read more about him, we'll discover some clues," Ruth Rose said. "What does it say on the back of your book?" Josh flipped the book over and began reading. "Wallace Wallace lives in a castle called Moose Manor." He looked up. We already knew he lived in a castle. I don't see any clues yet, you guys." Ruth Rose stared at Josh. "You know, something is bugging me, but I can't figure out what it is. Something someone said today, maybe." She shook her head. "Anyway, read yours, Dink." Dink read from the back cover of his book. "Wallace Wallace gives money from writing books to help preserve the wild animals that live in Maine." "Okay, so he gives money away to save animals, he lives in a castle, and he grows a bunch of green stuff," Josh said, counting on his fingers. Still no clues. Josh took another cookie. "But I just thought of something." He began slowly munching on the cookie. Dink raised his eyebrows. "Are you going to tell us, Josh?" "Well, I was thinking about room 302. Remember, someone signed in the register right after Wallace Wallace checked into room 303? And the signature was all smudged? And then Olivia Nugent told us that the room 302 had a do not disturb sign on it," Ruth Rose interrupted. "Livy never went into that room at all." Just then, Dink's mother drove up the driveway. She got out of the car, waved, and started walking toward the picnic table. "Oh no," Dink said. "If my mom finds out I'm trying to find a kidnapper, she won't let me out of the house. Don't say anything, okay?" "Can I not even say hi?" Josh asked. Dink threw a potato chip at Josh. "Say hi and then shut up about you-know-what." "Hi, Mrs. Duncan," Josh said, sliding a look at Dink. "Hi, kids. How was the book signing? Tell me about Wallace Wallace, Dink. Is he as wonderful as you expected?" Dink stared at his mother. He didn't want to lie, but if he told her the truth, she wouldn't let him keep looking for Wallace Wallace. And Dink had a sudden feeling that they were very close to finding him. "We can't stop now," he thought. He looked at his mother and grinned stupidly. "Dink? Honey? Why is your mouth open?" He closed his mouth. "Think, Dink, think," he ordered himself. Suddenly, Josh knocked over his lemonade glass. The sticky cold liquid spilled into Dink's lap. Dink let out a yowl and jumped up. "Gee, sorry," said Josh. "Paper towels to the rescue." Dink's mother ran toward the house. "Good thinking, Josh," Dink said, wiping at his wet jeans. "But did you have to spill it on me? You had the whole yard." Josh grinned. "Some people are never satisfied. I got you out of hot water, didn't I?" "Right into cold lemonade," Ruth Rose said. Dink blotted his jeans with a handful of paper napkins. "Come on, let's go meet Mavis before my mom comes back. There's something weird happening on the 3rd floor of the Shangri-La." Dink's jeans were nearly dry by the time they reached the hotel. Mavis was waiting out front. "How was your lunch?" she asked timidly. "Fine, thanks," Dink said. "We talked it over and we think there's something fishy going on the 3rd floor of this hotel." Suddenly, Mavis began coughing. She held up her scarf in front of her mouth. Dink noticed that the letters on the scarf were tiny M's. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Should I run in and get you some water?" asked Josh. Mavis took off her glasses and shook her head. No, I'm fine, thank you. Dear me, I don't know what happened." "Now what were you saying about the 3rd floor?" "We think Wallace Wallace may be up there," Ruth Rose said. She reminded Mavis about the smudged signature for room 302 and the Do Not Disturb sign on the door. Mavis replaced her eyeglasses. "Mercy! What do you think we should do?" "Follow me," Dink said. For the second time, they all trooped into the hotel lobby. Mr. Linkletter watched them from behind the counter. "Hi," Dink said. "Remember us?" "Vividly," Mr. Linkletter said. "Wallace Wallace checked into room 303, right?" "That is correct," said Mr. Linkletter. "Well, we talked to the maid who cleaned that room," Dink went on. "She told us no one slept in it." "You spoke to Olivia Nugent? How?" "We have our ways," Josh said. "So," Dink went on, "we think Wallace Wallace disappeared right here in this hotel. And Wallace Wallace is a very famous writer," Ruth Rose reminded Mr. Linkletter. "Millions of kids are waiting to read his next book," she added sweetly. Mr. Linkletter's sad eyes grew large. He swallowed and his Adam's apple bobbed up and down. He rubbed his forehead as he thought he had a headache. Then Dink told Mr. Linkletter about room 302. Miss Nugent said there was a Do Not Disturb sign on the door. Ruth Rose pointed to the register. "See? The signature is all smudged. We think the kidnappers are hiding Wallace Wallace in that room," Josh said. At the word kidnappers, Mr. Linkletter closed his eyes. He opened a drawer and he took out a bottle of headache pills, and he put one on his tongue. "Just to be on the safe side, perhaps we should check both rooms," Mr. Linkletter, Mavis said quietly. "It'll take just a minute," Dink said. Mr. Linkletter let out a big sigh. "Very well, but this is most unusual. Things run very smoothly at the Shangri-La." They all got into the elevator. No one spoke. Dink watched Mr. Linkletter jingling a bunch of his keys. Mr. Linkletter kept his eyes on the little arrow telling them which floor they were on. The elevator door opened on the 3rd floor. Mr. Linkletter unlocked room 303. "Most unusual," Mr. Linkletter muttered. The room was empty and spotless and clean. "Strange, very strange," Mr. Linkletter said. They moved to room 302, where a Do Not Disturb sign still hung on the doorknob. Mr. Linkletter knocked. They all leaned toward the door. "Listen, I hear a voice," Josh said. "What's it saying?" Ruth Rose asked. Then they all heard it. The voice was muffled, but it was definitely yelling, "Help! Help!" Mr. Linkletter unlocked the door and shoved it open. A man with curly blonde hair stared back at them. He was sitting in a chair with his feet tied in front of him. His arms were tied behind his back. A towel was wrapped around his mouth. "Oh my goodness!" Mr. Linkletter cried. Everyone rushed into the room. Dink ran behind the chair to untie the man's hands, while Josh untied his feet. Mavis unwrapped the towel from around his face. "Thank goodness you got here," the man said. "I'm Wallace Wallace. Someone knocked on my door last night. A voice said he was from room service. When I opened the door, 2 men dragged me in here and tied me up." He looked at Dink. "You're Dink Duncan. I recognize you from your photo you sent me. How did you find me?" "We followed your itinerary," Dink said. He showed Mr. Wallace a sheet of paper. "We got it from Mr. Paskey and used it as a trail. The trail led us to this room." "I'm so sorry I missed the book signing," Wallace said. "As you can see, I was a bit tied up." He smiled and then he rubbed his jaw. "My mouth is sore from that towel. I can't believe I was kidnapped. And I can't wait to get back to my safe little cottage in Maine." "Can you describe the 2 guys who kidnapped you?" Dink asked. "We should tell Officer Fallon so he can try to find them." Wallace stared at Dink. "The 2 guys? Oh, well, I don't think Hey!" Ruth Rose suddenly yelled. Everyone looked at her. "What's the matter?" asked Dink. "You look funny, Ruth Rose." Ruth Rose was staring at the red scarf draped around Mavis's neck. She pointed at the man who'd been tied up. "You're not Wallace Wallace." Then she looked at Mavis Green. "You are," she said quietly. So she thinks that Mavis Green is Wallace Wallace. That's it. Those were 3 chapters, 7, 8, and 9. I guess you'll have to wait till the next episode to see who Wallace Wallace really is. Dun dun dun! A to Z Mysteries, The Absent Author. We'll finish it off next time. Bye, guys.